Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, I'm Matt Quick with HireMilitary. We're going to talk to Teresa Threatts today. She recently transitioned from the military. We're going to talk about why she joined the military, those kind of things, her military experience. We're also going to add a new component to make it a little more uncomfortable for me, especially because these conversations have been good with me, just military transition and life after the military. We'll talk about a little bit of discrimination that Teresa may have saw in her career. That way we can open some eyes up to people that are in the military now or in transitions or veterans, just to have the conversation. And she's agreed to do that. So, Teresa, welcome to the show. You're going to have like a few thousand viewers today. So, hey, the floor is yours.
Pressure. Thank you, Matt. And I thank HireMilitary for inviting me on today to speak with some of the, as you stated, some of the hard topics that we're facing today. In reference to my experience, I joined the military June 15th, 1989. I retired in February 2012, so it's not too recent, but it's about 8 years now. So still feel like I'm going through the transition that, I am. I'm originally from South Carolina. Yeah, I'm still going through it. Originally from South Carolina, joined there in basic training at Fort Jackson in the hottest month of the year, June of '89. So yeah, basically had a pretty good experience there. As we all know, South Carolina is definitely Southern, and I've experienced some racism there. I wouldn't say, I guess a lot, and what a lot means to some people may not, may be something different to other people. But I can remember, as we talked earlier, my first duty station, which was Fort Carson, Colorado, beautiful place. I had a wonderful time at Fort Carson. However, when I first initially got there, school had always been pretty much in me. I always wanted to go to school because, the military said, hey, you join, you can get all the education you want to get. For the most part, you had the opportunity to go. The unit that I was in was a signal unit, and they tested for every piece of equipment. Anytime they got a new piece of equipment, we were in the field. As I was telling you earlier, yeah. So I stayed in the field, but I can remember going to Fort Carson and didn't even get an opportunity to really in process before I was tossed out in the field. So basically, I worked with a bunch of people. I worked with people of all walks of life, all races, all creeds and colors. Well, I started to notice that once I asked my commander, hey, sir, I want to go ahead and, while I'm young, to go ahead and start start school, get some education.
Which is smart.
And I remember going to him and asking him, could I start school? Had went and he said, yeah, he okayed it, signed up. Next thing I know, I was being told that, by the way, you can go ahead and forget going to school because we have these critical missions that you need to be a part of. And then I noticed that the same people with my same MOS, other people with my same MOS in the unit, and they were Caucasians, and they were going left and right to school, going left and right. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. If the mission is critical for me, why is it not critical for them? Why are they going to school? And so that was my first taste of it. This was in 1989, 1990.
Okay.
So, and then of course, being a private, you feel like you have no power. So what could I go and tell a captain? Hey, you gotta let me go to school. And then I noticed it almost became like a trend, and I noticed that so many other people, privates, people as young as I was at the time, wanted to go to school and kept being denied. We kept going to the field, and I kept seeing other people go. And I'm like, okay, what is really going on here? Because then I'm thinking, not only was I disappointed, I was getting angry. Because again, these same people shared a unit with me. We shared the field together. What was so wrong that I couldn't go, but they could? And so really, I didn't challenge it because I really felt like, I was going to come up on the losing end of the deal. There was no need for me to sit back and and fight, I guess you could say, because again, being a private, you were just private. You were just a private, and you were powerless. At least I felt. But they were also privates, and they got an opportunity to go.
So this is 1990, the early 90s. You're a so you come from South Carolina, then you go to Fort Carson, Colorado, where it's probably cold there, and not only are you a private, which is one of the lowest ranks the military has, you're a black female, which is even more could be more, I guess, hard for a service member to go into. So you dealt with all that. How'd you overcome it? Because you stayed in for 23 years.
Yes, I did.
Unless a person would have, I guess, maybe quit or went home, right?
Well, that was kind of what I initially wanted to do, because again, never thinking that I would run into this, because I'm thinking, okay, once I join the military, it's almost like saying, oh, we're all the same color, we wear the same uniform, we're on the same team. And you know, and for me to have that mindset at such a young age, and then to get cut off from doing the one thing I wanted to do, I'm thinking, okay, this should be a reward for me for even joining the military. This is something that I've earned, and I feel like it was snatched. But I knew for me too, I didn't want to go back home, and I didn't want to go back home a failure. I didn't want to go back home to my mom and to say, hey, things got hard, so I quit. Because that would have been the easy thing to do, to tell somebody, you know what, I can't do it, I just quit. You know, so what would I be telling myself about me? You know, that I can't stick it out when it gets hard, you know, and regardless of the circumstances. I had to dig, and I had to get people that surround myself with all types of people. I'm not just talking about, you know, blacks, but I started surrounding myself with positive people. And for me, growing up, I wasn't raised to see color, even though, again, I'm from South Carolina, and that's the home of Strom Thurmond, one of the biggest segregationists ever. You know, so a lot of people know about the history of South Carolina, but I knew for me, I couldn't do that. It's where the military was not my choice, by the way. It was my mother's choice. It was like, hey, you got to come over the game plan, because if not, I have one for you.
Typically, parents don't push kids in the military. Kids rebel and go into the military, but you're different than that, right?
I'm different in that way, in that regard, because my mother said, hey, you're either going to come, you're going to live here, but you're going to pay me rent. And I'm thinking, what? Pay rent? This house is paid for. Why should I pay rent? I think I can live free, right? Live scot-free, you know, live off her and drive her car and eat her food. And she was like, no. So it was either her or either me going to the military. And by process of elimination, I graduated June 3rd, 1989, and I was in the military June 15th, 1989. So
wow.
There we have it.
So Teresa, no time at home. There's a question coming through from Todd. He was watching earlier. He has as time progressed, did things get better for you at Fort Carson or during your career?
Well, they got a little better for me throughout my career, because again, you know, as you just stated, that privates, you know, like the lowest of the low. And, you know, when you tell a person, you know, you're just a private, that leaves that person powerless. And, you know, back then, now you're not even allowed to say that, because it demeans the person. And that's how I felt. I felt powerless. So I didn't have any meaning, at least in my chain of command, my commander. But it got better as I started meeting different people from different walks of life, getting to know their philosophies, and then getting into my job. So things got better. I'm not saying that it stopped, everything kind of stopped in terms of the racism, but it got better. It got a lot better.
So now you moved on from Fort Carson. Where did you go next, and did you experience any kind of discrimination there either?
I went from Fort Carson, and I think I went to Fort Lee, Virginia, another cold spot. No, as a matter of fact, I went to Korea. Let me backtrack.
Okay.
You know, I went to Korea. It was amazing to me in Korea, I was on a train. I was going to some people may be familiar with Daegu. I was going on the military board. By then, I was like E3, trying to make E4, and I was on this train going to Daegu. And I remember being on the train, and this little Korean boy with his mom, they were on the train as well, and he grabbed me and he started rubbing my arm, thinking that the black would come off. I mean, this is a child, so you expect them not to understand. But he was just doing this because, again, I guess that's not really, seeing this person on the train, and I'm so different. I'm the only one of my kind on this train. So this child who knew no better decided to test to see, and I said, "Honey, that's not coming off, okay? That's not coming off." And and I had to have a sense of humor with it, but I was, I was kind of humiliated. And then going into the stores in Korea, they would watch, and I mean, me and a few more of my buddies, especially blacks, we would go into the stores and they would watch, they would gaze, they would be sure that their eyes were on us so that we wouldn't steal. And I'm thinking, this is not how I was raised. I'm going to pay for whatever I want to purchase. But yeah, that was humiliating. It really was. And I'm like, wow, is this their mindset too? I had just left that type of behavior. Now I'm coming now. I'm feeling it from the Korean civilians, out here. So I'm thinking now it's almost unavoidable. So again, that was something else. Again, as I told you earlier, Matt, there's two things you can do with it. You can let it fester, or you can deal with it, as it comes. And that was just another lesson that I ended up having to learn and thinking, okay, you don't want this to be the norm, but sometimes, unfortunately for us, it is. It's just the norm. And we expect to just sit back and say, hey, okay, it's the norm. This is the way it is. And so, yeah, I had to.
I do want to break in for a second here. So we're here talking today with Teresa Threatts about the military service, her military transition, and we're also going to talk about her racism she experienced in the military, just to shine some light on it and have some perspective from Teresa. And I'll tell you, during those times, I'm here to listen, learn, hopefully to understand, and give someone, I guess, promote more conversations like these throughout the military, veteran community. Mm-hmm. Just have the conversation, because these are uncomfortable for me, especially. They're uncomfortable for me, and it could be for many others. So the conversation we have, this is for you. I'm not sure how you found the strength to do all that in military service. And even today, we hear about the same things on different scales, but going to Korea, some people feel more comfortable over there. And what struck me was service members feel more comfortable going to war because they know who their enemy is. Right. And you've been to combat, right, Teresa?
No, I have not. I actually have not been to combat. And I've heard people say, a lot of people, they call me a slick sleeve because I didn't have anything, no combat package or whatever. And I was okay with that. But I've heard, a few of my buddies say, when it comes to the foxhole, why would you care which color is pulling you out of the foxhole? Why would you care who is protecting you from that enemy? You don't care what color this individual, this soldier is. All you know is that this is another American, this is a soldier, this is your battle buddy, this is somebody who could possibly save your life. Why would anybody make any type of big deal about color? So I've heard that conversation being tossed around. Who would care? If you're saving my life, you can be a Smurf blue. I wouldn't care.
I would appreciate it, true.
Yeah, and I'm just being real about it. It's just I wouldn't care. You saved my life. I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks, white guy, for saving my life. No. Thanks, soldier.
Thanks, battle buddy.
Thanks, buddy, for saving me. There's no color to that, no color context at all to that, nor should it ever be.
So you moved from Fort Carson to Korea. Things really haven't changed or gotten better. You moved to Fort Lee next, which is named for a Confederate general. Were things different down there at all?
Fort Lee was also very cold. It's like I couldn't escape the cold. It's like, woo. At Fort Lee, I was an E4. Got there, got to my unit, and I had a mentor, Master Sergeant Walsh, Marty Walsh, E8 white guy. Loved Master Sergeant Walsh. He and his wife took me in. He was getting ready to retire, so he just pretty much put on me everything that I needed to learn in terms of doing my job in terms of the supply, to being a young supply specialist, but also had another person, black gentleman by the name of Chief Johnny Bartell. He was from South Carolina, and I remember after Master Sergeant Walsh left, I was like, man, I'm out here in the cold. I don't have anybody to help me. And I also had a commander who was from West Point. Now, I don't know what it is about some of these officers or some of the West Point officers versus all the other officers, but it's like, hey, you never want to work for a West Point officer. And I ended up working for one.
Now, we're not going to disparage West Point officers because the cream of the crop we're here. So go ahead, Teresa.
Okay, so I ended up Chief Bartell. I didn't know anything in terms of supply. I was still green. I needed to know a lot more. And I remember asking him all these questions. Hey, Chief, how do you do this? Hey, Chief, how do you do that? And he slammed the door in my face and he said, look, when you find the answers, you come back and brief me. You come brief me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. But you know what, Matt, that was the best he could have ever done for me, because he didn't give me anything. He made me earn it. He made me earn it. He earned my respect, because actually I was kind of ticked off, like this guy's crazy. Why is he not telling me what I need to know? Yeah, he literally slammed the door in my face and he said, come back and brief me when you find the answers. And I'm looking at him like, you little short, But again, that was something great for me. He became a mentor. I stopped asking questions and started just kind of giving him, even if I had questions, I knew he wasn't going to tell me. I'm like, okay, I got to go do some more research. And he made me dig for it. And then I got promoted and he promoted me. And all of a sudden, this self-esteem that I really didn't have, this confidence, it started kicking in, and I started meeting more people, and it just became one of those things that started becoming me. I found myself,
That's good. That's good. So now, you've got a degree now, right?
Yes, I have a couple, I have a few.
A few degrees. So you start from Fort Carson, you try to get education, and you finally get it. How did you finally get it?
Well, unfortunately, with the last degree that I got, the last two degrees that I got were both a Bachelor of Science and then my MBA. And I actually went online. Actually, I was getting ready to retire. As I was retiring, I started kind of going to school and everything. But in between, I was taking these little classes here and there, kind of hit and miss classes. Mm-hmm. So I had some serious credits. And then I'm like, okay, I'll go online. And I thought online was a little challenging, but I ended up doing two degrees back to back, which was my Bachelor of Science and then my MBA. I did them straight online at South University. And that was another thing. That was the one thing that, and I know people can say, hey, degrees don't make you or whatever, and they don't. I understand it. I'm not my MBA. I'm not my master's degrees or whatever. But however, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. Even as I was taking those small classes, because when I was first told no, that I couldn't go to school at Fort Carson, that just kind of took me as like, wow. It almost made me say to myself, apparently I don't have what it takes to succeed at going to school. And this was only, school is only for white people and others except us, except myself. And so But then again, after all the years it had come and gone, and then I was able to actually go to school, and I found that self confidence, and I'm like, okay, I'm good enough if I'm good enough to take those classes, I'm good enough to get my degrees, and yeah, I set out, I made it my personal mission to educate myself. So don't regret it, and I would implore anybody to do the same.
I'll tell you, that's awesome. Coming from where you came from, going through what you went through in the military, all the obstacles, all the extra obstacles you have to go through being a black person and a female, I'll tell you, you're very strong. So we brought you on today to talk about really military transition as well. So when did you decide to transition from the military, and why?
Well, I transitioned in February of 2012. You know, I obtained the rank of Sergeant First Class E7, and I enjoyed every bit. I enjoyed every bit of my military service. But at some point in time, and I think we all get there, you know when it's time to say, hey, it's time for phase two. It's time for phase two in my life, because the military, because it's so, I guess you can say predictable, and then again unpredictable, because of course we all know what we're going to wear from day to day, right? For the most part.
So simple.
Right. We know pretty much what we're going to do. Even though in the military, of course, you got to be flexible because missions change. And I get that. But at the same time, I was just at that point where actually I sat in my car one day, Matt, and I'll be honest with you, and I asked God, I had to pray. And when he gave me the all clear, I was like, hey, I'm going to the S1. Hey, I'm ready to retire. No, you can't retire, Sergeant Threatts. Watch me. I loved my career, but it was time for me to come step out of Sergeant Threatts, talking to Teresa, my next phase. And that's pretty much what I want to do. And it's been tough. I'll be honest with you, man. From 2012 into 2018, I dedicated my life to my father, who was sick with dementia. And so I actually was a caretaker for a very, very long time. And so I was kind of in and out of jobs or whatever, but really didn't have a lot of stability to them. But at the same time, the bigger picture for me was my father. He was dying, and that wasn't a real big choice for me. It wasn't a tough decision for me. Either I could take care of my father, or I could go and, get to this job and pull my hair out what little bit I had left out, stressing, or I could do the thing that I know I needed to do, which was to take care of my father. So there was really not a whole lot of argument or debate about it. So I actually had to resign a couple positions in order to do the thing I knew I needed to do, which was to take care of my father.
And for the first time, I'm sorry your father passed away. That's tough. It's tough for families to go through that, and you being the caregiver and having to give up your careers possibly to do that. That's what some employers don't look for when they have the breaks in their resume services. So it's important to discuss that. I'm glad you bring it up today, because people don't understand. Well, I see a gap in your employment history. What happened? Well, here's what happened. And then they're like, well, okay, I get it now. There is a question coming across from Larissa M. She asked, Teresa, do you feel you experienced sexism as well as racism throughout your military career?
Yes. I was wanting to. I guess I got to the point. I became an E7, senior NCO, and I was gearing up to wanting to go to. I actually tried to go with another unit to be deployed. I guess I got this guilt thing. All of my friends were going. I'm like, man, I just kind of feel guilty. So I was trying to be cross-referenced with another company, and the commander was like, hey, we pretty much be happy to take you, except we're looking for a male. And I'm like, okay, you're looking for a male. And I'm thinking, but he needed an E7. He just needed a male. And I thought that was kind of weird. I'm like, oh, okay. But then he says, okay, well, we're an engineering unit and we have this heavy equipment and we wouldn't want you to hurt yourself. And I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, this not be meant for me to go. So I just scurried my little self back to my unit. I was like, okay, and I really wanted to do it because I thought it was going to be challenging. And like I said too, I had a little bit of guilt. I wanted to go, and this was a unit that needed an E7, and I thought I could go, but I was shot down.
And what year was that?
I want to say this was in 2000 and I want to say 5 for some reason.
So 2005.
Could have been later.
Females are still facing sexism in the military, and there's been changes since. We have females now graduating Ranger Corps. We have a female now set to graduate the Special Operations Corps, Special Forces Corps. So there's been great strides, but yes, you experienced that, and those experiences for you are real, and they're raw because it's only a few years ago.
Yeah, actually, yeah. And I was actually at the time I also become the EO. I was actually EO and EO trained, and I knew that this is just crazy from everything that I've been taught. Now all of a sudden I'm experiencing the very things that they were teaching us, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, not that I was supposed to be, I guess you could say, protected from that or I've gotten a pass on it, but I just never thought that I would hear, okay, I understand, okay, this equipment is heavy. How heavy could it be to where you can't use me with the mission? And so once again, I was like, okay, won't do that again, so I kind of let it drop. But then of course it always sticks with you because you're being told as a female, hey, you can't do the job that a man should be doing, or that only a man can do. So I felt kind of shortchanged even with that.
So absolutely. So Larissa, good question. Teresa did experience sexism in the military just less than a decade ago. So yes, it was still prevalent back then, and unfortunately, you experienced racism, you experienced sexism in the military, and I thank you for sharing that with the audience, because that can't be easy for you to share, right?
No, but you know what? It's also therapeutic because, again, I just think that sometimes when we experience things, as I told you earlier, we can use it as a reference, but not to have it as a residence. You don't want to stay there. And that's what I decided not to do, which was to stay there. Because had I stayed there, and when I say there, I guess I'm talking about that mindset, I wouldn't have grown. And a lot of disappointments grows. And so you kind of take it as it is. Either you can take things and you can deal with them as they come, or you can let it snowball. And all of a sudden, it takes one more thing for you to explode, and then that's it. So, you want to kind of get those issues and deal with them as they come and not let them snowball. So I think that was a major advantage for me, that I allowed myself to take care of to deal with these issues as they came.
Teresa, I'm so glad you didn't stay there. I'm glad because now you're here, hopefully sharing your experiences and open up people's minds now from your experiences. So I'm going to ask it could be a tough question. If it is, bypass it, we'll move on. But individually, how can I do better as a man or as a white man? Because you experience both sexism and racism in the military. How can I do better, or people like me do better for everybody, especially the Black community?
Well, I think you did really, really well, Matt, when you went out for a run with your neighbor. I think that in itself says that you're open, and I've been knowing you for some time now. We've had conversations via LinkedIn, and like I told you, even though we exchange messages on LinkedIn, I think I know your heart pretty well. So you already have a pretty good advantage that you're willing, and that's where it starts. Because I believe that you can't do anything without desire. So in order to educate anybody, in order to do anything, you first of all have to have a desire. And for me, as an African American woman, I don't want anybody to sit back and for me to feel sorry for me, or to I'm just the type of person that where I'm going to earn it. I don't want to earn it because of the color of my skin. I want you to give it to me because I've earned it. I don't want to be one of those, people that say, hey, I deserve it because of I'm African American or I'm Black. So my thing with you is that, again, you are willing to learn, and it starts with an open mind along with an open heart, of course. And and in terms of judgment, you're not judgmental. You know how to. There's a difference between listening and hearing, because sometimes when a person wants to sit back and pour their soul out to you, the best thing you can do as a person, and you have done that, is just to listen, and that's what you're doing. And I think that's what it takes nowadays. I think we have more similarities than we do differences. But if people, they got to come out of that mindset. Sometimes we have to take our feelings and that are our emotions. And I know that's hard to do. That's a hard concept to do, to separate yourself from your feelings. But sometimes that's the best thing to do, because we are fickle people. I can want to be Superwoman tomorrow and Batwoman next week, So we're fickle. And I think we have to get to that point in time to where we actually can sit back and have decent conversations, mature conversations, without having to be heated, because I can disagree with you but respect you all the same, and I would want you to reciprocate, and I think you've done that.
And that's important. And we have a question from Sharon Roberts. She asked, Teresa, do you think with the great strides made, some steps back or little change in many ways of sexism? So is there change? Has there been positive change over the years? She joined in 1975, and she hears today's horror stories. So do you think perhaps military or society is changing for the better, although not perfect?
Yeah, I would say that it's changing for the better. I think for the most part, of course, we still have a long way to go. And again, it goes back to having these real conversations. I understand, and I hear people say, we have freedom of speech in this country, and we do. You have freedom of speech, but you also have to be cognizant of the repercussions or the consequences that come with you saying whatever you want to say. There's a way of saying something to someone, disagreeing with them, but not being so blatant and disrespectful about it. And everything seems to gravitate around color now. But again, I think as we would be able to sit back, and because we have a generation of children that are looking at us, and I'm sitting back here thinking, what are we going to leave for them? Is this the mess that we want to leave back for them to clean up? If we're supposed to be adults, and we're humans, so we have the power of reasoning, of thinking. We need to sit back and really have a conversation with each other, not the yelling and the screaming, because who can hear with all of that? Nobody. I can't hear you if you're yelling and screaming at me, but if you sit back and say, hey, Teresa, let's have a real conversation. And sometimes that conversation is going to be tough, but you can still do that. And I can still have a tough conversation with somebody and still love them the same, because that's just how it starts. It starts with where you were raised. It starts with, as we were saying, home training. It starts with all of that. So I just believe all that starts at home, and we can do it. We can do anything we want to do. But are you willing to do it? Are you willing to sit down and have the tough conversations? Are you willing to say, hey, I disagree with you and this is why, and accept that other person's reason for disagreeing with you, or you with them?
True.
It's not just listening.
And dialogue is so much better than debate for these types of issues, because I don't know what certain people go through. They don't know what I go through. So it's a good dialogue to have. It's not comfortable at all. This isn't easy for me, but it made it easier because you're willing to open up and listen. I open up and listen. That's my job right now, is to listen and hopefully provide open dialogue or open conversation with the community. I don't want to switch gears too fast, but you transitioned in 2012, and you see how people transition today. Do you think do you think it's better transition today with the tools that we have, or do you think maybe it can get better as you transition from the military?
I believe that the transition with the tools that are available, like HireMilitary, you guys, when I came out, I mean, there were probably some entities such as yours, some organizations that existed. But when I remember doing my retirement briefing, and all they said, hey, be sure that you get VA, be sure when you get out that, get your 4-year degree, and almost like you'll live happily ever after. That wasn't the case. They didn't tell us the in between. They didn't tell us, okay, you don't go from A to Z. you go from A through Z, because there's a process in between. It's like this wilderness moment right here that they don't tell you about. They don't prepare you for it. And it's like they give you all this, hey, civilians are going to really love you guys. Really? That's not the case. And so if veterans, and we don't talk to one another, we don't communicate to one another, with one another, then of course it's going to be this big gap. And that's pretty much what I experienced. Because as you were saying, I think you were talking about your transition. I'm like, man, where was I when he had his transition? Because it was two different animals. It was like literally like day and night, and I didn't get the tools that are being offered today. So I think it's a lot better now.
Well, I tell
more
you,
tools, more information.
there's so I think LinkedIn provides a huge network of people in one area to help transition veterans out. Some are veterans themselves,
Yes.
some just want to be helpful. But if you sit back and listen, be a sponge to those around you, some won't have all the information. Some just sharing your experiences. That's why I share my experiences, because I've been there. I transitioned twice, once from the Marine Corps, once from the Army, and it was completely different. But I share my experiences because it helps people out and it helps them understand. So when I heard your transition story, maybe last year, I felt better about mine, unfortunately, because there are more, I guess, more outlets these days.
Right.
And even like O2O, Onward Opportunity, we get free certifications. American Corporate Partners, ACP, we get a mentor.
Yes.
Now, as a veteran, have you taken advantage of these opportunities?
Actually, I have.
Yes.
I have, and so now I'm going to, take more advantage, especially coming from your end. But yeah, I've taken advantage of them, and I've spoken to some great mentors, and maybe I need to get a little bit more. I'm getting ready to, as a matter of fact, today, get a little bit more active even into that, because of course, sharing experiences are the things that really teach us. Because of course, we're not going to learn it. The VA is not going to just lay it on your lap. The people that transition you out in terms of these people that come talk to you. We had the Chamber of Commerce come talk to us, and I'm thinking it was like almost like that Charlie Brown thing. Wah, 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 wah. That's all I heard. I didn't really get a full understanding.
You had the same brief I had.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay. And then again, they really didn't have the programs like you just stated today. They didn't have people who made sure that, hey, you understood the transition, and they would kind of walk with you. We were like giving, here's your retirement paperwork. Here's a couple, hey, here's how you do a resume, they think. And then all of a sudden, you're kind of tossed out with the wolves, like, good luck. So that's kind of how I felt. I'm like, okay, this is going to be easy.
So I think it's so valuable to be on LinkedIn. And those that are on Facebook watch us right now, again, I'll say it for the 10th time today, come over to LinkedIn. It's where professional social media, where you got to be to get information that leads to networking, that leads to jobs. So come on over if you're on Facebook watching us today. Teresa, so you transitioned. You were a primary caregiver to your dad. What are you doing today, and are you looking for opportunities around the Houston area?
Yes, I'm actually. I've met some wonderful people on LinkedIn, and you guys, as I stated, Chris Thorne has been Chris really went out of his way.
Man.
Yeah, he did. I remember even he and I when we first linked up. I just remember that, and he's been great. And I've met so many different people on LinkedIn, and I think sometimes, Matt, we get to the point where so many of us are out here looking for jobs that we get on LinkedIn. It's like, hey, I want to be sure I get this dream job. But I think we meet people for different reasons. I've met people on LinkedIn that had nothing to do with getting a job, but at the same time, they were so perfectly invested in me, and of, hey, we want to see you grow. We want to, we're praying for you. Those type of people that I tend to get around. And Solomon Savoy, he's one of them. Having to give a little shout out. This guy and his wife, great people. Nicola McFadden, she's also a great person. And some of these people that I gotten to really know have become like family. And they know me when I'm in days where I'm like, God, is this thing really what's going on with this job? And okay, everybody's getting jobs on LinkedIn, but one thing I did learn, man, when I see people on LinkedIn saying, hey, I got an offer from such and such company and I'll be starting work, you got to learn how to celebrate people. And I do that. I celebrate people because, sometimes this is, everybody has a season in their lives where they are to get what they're looking for. And so now I'm looking at a lot of as I told you, I had enough rejections to wallpaper my house. I'm okay with it. I'm okay because I know from all those rejections, they can't come back for one. And then, I'll get that yes. I'll get there, yes, because you got to know what you bring to the table. So I'm just simply not my resume. I'm not some mere words splattered on a piece of paper. I bring more than that. And so it's up to me to be able to sell myself, to be able to say, hey, this is what I can do for you.
And Teresa, so this conversation today, the conversation, you already have a small fan club here in the comments. So after you just scroll through the comments and ask them, so there may be employers in the Houston area that see Teresa Threatts for who she is, not just some words in a resume or a cover letter. They may just see you for who you are right now and say, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on her. And I'll tell you what, if you're an employer in the Houston area, take a chance on Teresa. You won't go wrong. The return of investment will be quick, swift, and great.
Wow, man, just made me cry on LinkedIn, would you?
Oh, don't cry. Don't do that. But that's, you're doing.
I really.
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying I really appreciate that. Sometimes again, and I understand there are millions of other people out here that are going through. We're going through this pandemic, and of course, a lot of people's spirits are down, and they're saying, well, how in the world am I going to be able to, children, they have homes, they have, families to take care of, and they don't see a way out. And I just want to kind of encourage people to say, you know what, keep your head up. Your day is coming. It may not be today, but it's coming. And when it does happen, I'll celebrate you. And I don't mind doing that. I want people to have what they feel that they should have, or what they feel like is, what they deserve. So I cheer for a whole lot of people that I never probably ever meet face to face. But again, we got to learn how to celebrate one another. There should be no envy, no strife. A lot of us are veterans. And so I'm definitely cheering for my brothers and sisters in uniform, my vets, and anybody else who needs, good paying jobs to support their families. But that's what I do. I'm a cheerleader for a lot of people. Sometimes I don't cheerlead for myself, but that's okay. It'll come.
We're hard on ourselves, though, Teresa.
Yes, we are. My best buddy, Angela Thomas, I know she's listening. She's always telling me, well, you need to stop writing about stuff. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, she stays on me too. But, she's been like my sister. One of those people that, she knows the best she knows the best about me and the worst. And so you have to have those type of people in your life. You have to have that support group. And I think that's so essential, especially nowadays with things the way they look.
Well, I see the comments coming through the live stream, and you do have a big network of supporters. So you can count the HireMilitary team as well as your supporter.
Yeah,
and we're there for you.
Thank you.
So as we can conclude this, is there anything you want to maybe say to an employer that should take a chance on hiring you? What value can you bring to them right now?
Well, I believe as an employer or a potential employee, I bring a lot to the table. I'm just the type of person that can get a group of people who may disagree on an array of topics, and I just know how to bring people together. Because I don't think it takes a lot of screaming and yelling to get your point across. My mother had a saying, and she said, respect will take you places that a dime won't. And that's so true, because you get into the hearts and minds of people. And yeah, it may be about your resume, but who are you? And I can only tell you who I am. So first of all, I love God. I wouldn't be where I'm at today had it not been for him. And I've surrounded myself with people, like I said. And for me, character is everything. Character is everything. I'm not bringing, a representative. This is who I am. So to everybody out there, to any potential employer, what you see is what you get. This is not somebody who is, rehearsed. I'm real. But the one thing about me is that, again, I believe in loving everybody. I don't care about your background. I don't care your color. I just know this. We need to talk about love more. And I know that may sound cliche-ish, but that's what we're missing. And I think the thing is that I can bring that to an organization. I can bring, what I grew up with. Again, it goes back to the home training to respect people regardless. If I can respect the CEO, I can also respect the janitor. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And I come with that. And I thank God that I was raised the way that I was raised, not to sit back and look at your title and say you deserve more respect than this other person because they have what some people may deem as less a title. Everybody's important. And without that, without people recognizing that, then you don't even have an organization. You don't have an organization. You have a group of animals running around trying to see who's bigger. But I just think collectively as a person, I bring that. And I just know how to bring people together. And I just love everybody. So I think with that breaks a whole lot of stuff up, a lot of confusion where you can come in and you can be sincere. Be sincere about who you are, because in the end, if you're not showing people who you truly are, they'll decide to put their own label on you. And I don't give anybody that opportunity to label me. This is who I am.
That is so true. And if you're an employer in the Houston area, Teresa is a operations and supply chain leader, expert, but more importantly, she can bring collaboration to a team and really positively impact your company's or organization's culture. So reach out to Teresa. I'll change, I'll edit the post to make sure your name is linked in there so they can just quickly link on you. Teresa, thank you for coming on today and talking about your military experience, your transition, but most importantly, thanks for opening up and talking about the discrimination you felt went on in the military with you, both racism and sexism, because these aren't easy conversations to talk about. And right now, even talking about it is tough for me, but learning from you, I learned a great deal. So I wish you the best, and we're not going to stop talking. You and I will talk for a long time, even when you get a job and you're some bigwig. Don't forget about us, all right? And you come back on here. So I'm gonna come back on here tomorrow at 3 p.m. East Coast time. I'll be back on tomorrow with, who knows, we'll just pick somebody at random tomorrow. But Teresa, again, thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you in the future. Thank you very much, Teresa.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. It was an honor. So thank you. Bless you.
I appreciate everybody watching today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.